My name is Sarah, and I am from sunny North Carolina. It's a beautiful day outside today. I am so overjoyed to be here today and humbled to just kind of answer questions and talk to everybody. This is my first time coming out and sharing my story, so a little nervous, but definitely want to share in hopes that other people will be brave enough to share as well, because it certainly helps. So my infertility journey started 5 weeks after I got married. Leading up to my wedding, I was actually in and out of doctor's offices in the ER with just terrible stomach pain. And I was told it was GI related, so was going down the track to figure out what that was on medication. Anyway, 5 weeks after we got married, we wanted to start having kids right away. I got off my birth control, and the day I got my IUD out, I was in the emergency room having emergency surgery. So didn't expect that, didn't see that coming. I ended up having my right ovary removed as well as my right fallopian tube. I had a 9-centimeter tumor on my right ovary that just completely killed it and took my fallopian tube with it. So after that, we had to wait 3 months for my recovery to try and have children. I was, again, 36 at the time. I have another underlying health condition, so already kind of knew that having a child may not be possible, but completely unrelated, didn't see myself having a tumor on my ovary. So after the 3 months of recovery from my surgery, I just decided to go ahead and see a fertility specialist, given my age and, again, the underlying health condition that I have. And upon testing, it was discovered that I was in premature ovarian failure. So we started on medication right away, and just, trying to get my body ready for IUIs, IVF, all of that, timed intercourse to get pregnant. So with all the medication and everything, I was only able to go through one IUI cycle, which failed. We were on our journey to do our second one, and I ended up back in the ER again, actually on vacation at the beach. So that was a great vacation. So switched doctors throughout the years. We tried for 3 years, was on, again, multiple rounds of medication, injections, patches, everything. But again, my body could never get itself to go past the point of having an IUI. So we knew, after a few years, after multiple doctors, after all of the tests, that, biological children were not in the cards for us. We could have tried egg donation or possibly surrogacy, but, at the end of the day, we made the decision to just kind of stop and not proceed with any other treatments or trying any other treatments at a certain point. And then, in all honesty, my journey had to kind of stop on its own anyway, because I have found myself to now be in the menopause phase of my life. I'm actually seeing a doctor about that now. So, we decided to stop trying to have children, but then my body stopped being able to 100% do it anyway. So definitely the hardest thing that I've ever been through. Not easy. It took away the person I was. I am not the same person today. I will never be the same person. It's hard. It's hard to explain. It is such an isolating thing. Just people don't understand the grief and the pain that comes along with this, which is really hard. We tried to get help from professionals, therapy, all that stuff. And we were never able to find anyone that could help us, whether they didn't take our insurance, they couldn't take us at certain times. We may have seen somebody and they stopped seeing us because they didn't think we needed help. We just felt alone, and there was just nowhere to turn to get help. So we kind of had to help ourselves, which is not easy to do. But psychologically, it has been the worst thing that I've ever had to deal with.
Hi, my name is Dayna Mohan. I'm from Kentucky. I'm the author of Inconceivable, a memoir focused on our fertility journey that spanned 10 years. So let me tell you a little bit about my infertility journey. After a missed endometriosis diagnosis, I was forced to see a specialist because of our inability to conceive. Once seeing the specialist, I was diagnosed and had stages 2, 3, and 4 of endometriosis removed. And I also had a cyst the size of a chicken egg on my right ovary removed. And thankfully, he saved my ovary and it was not cancerous. So all things, good there. Except the decade of back-to-back treatments that followed were unbearable. I was barely hanging on every day. I learned to trick my brain to smile when I needed to smile and be fine when I needed to be fine. And then I would go home and I would fall apart. Always when I was alone, never in front of anyone else, so as to not add extra stress to my husband or to have to endure questions and unsolicited advice from friends and family. So with that, I fell into a very dark, low place, and I felt like I was at the bottom of a dry well, and every time I got close to the top, having a good outcome in any kind, the world was just there to say, no, this is not for you. And I felt like it just got even higher, that bare wall that I was trying to climb out on. My resume of infertility is long and to some may be shocking, so here it goes. I have had 3 fertility-related surgeries, 12 total miscarriages, 8 total IVF procedures, a gestational carrier, an egg donor, 3 total IUI procedures, 2 with injectables and 1 with Clomid, 3 months on Clomid alone, 2 foiled adoption attempts, countless injections, and more than enough suppositories. So after all that, my husband and I, hit rock bottom. After we decided not to try for children any longer in any form or fashion, the hope that I had that something would work, the hope I had for my life and my future was just stripped away from me, and I was left dangling from a wire of life on a rope that was frayed. If I wasn't trying for a baby, if I wasn't going to be a mother, then who was I? I didn't feel I had an identity any longer. I had been the one that was trying for a baby for so long that once that was over, then what was I even here for? It was all encompassing, and I had to start at the bottom of that well again. I had to work to find my worthiness. I had to imagine a life that I had never planned for. The life that I am now living was completely inconceivable to me before my endometriosis diagnosis. I didn't even know where to start. So psychologically, I was planning my own suicide, and I came to the conclusion that I didn't want to harm myself because I did not want my mom to have to tell a story of losing me through suicide. I am one of 3 children and I'm the middle one. And I just always imagined possibly her saying, I have 3 children. Oh, now I have 2. One killed herself. Oh, and that just seemed like such a slap in the face to my mom after she was a single mom raising us and gave so much. I couldn't do that to her. But after I came to that conclusion, I was not careful in my life. It wasn't drugs or alcohol or anything like that. I didn't care. I kind of hoped that I would die in some way. So an example was once when I was on my way to work, and it was actually, to kind of paint a picture for you, I had to be at work at 7 in the morning. So it was about 6:15 in the morning. So it was dark still. And here I am in my car with my makeup in the passenger seat, and I'm putting my makeup on, and I'm eating a bowl of cereal, holding the bowl of cereal in my left hand, and I'm driving with my knee, and I'm going about 85 miles per hour down the highway, and a gas truck pulled out in front of me, and I didn't stop. I didn't have the time or wherewithal to even think to stop because it happened so quickly. And my car, on its own, pulled into the emergency lane, went past the truck, pulled back in front of the truck, and I realized then, oh, I was just saved and I'm not supposed to die. So from then on, I started working toward trying to figure out how to find myself again, and focus on what was it, things that made me happy. And I was still going through treatments when this happened. So as much as I was being broken down by the cultures that I'm involved in, because my husband is Indian, and it's very important in his culture for the oldest son, and he's the oldest son, to have a baby to carry on the name. But the oldest son also carries a special connotation in the family, and that's a little too much to get into. But I wasn't able to provide that, and I was really under a lot of pressure from that side, and then I was under a lot of pressure from what American society does for women. If you don't have a baby, then you're not a complete woman, and all these things. So I had to work every day, and I wasn't able to do it by myself. So finally reached out and got a little bit of help, and just a little bit of change of perspective. I was able to just skyrocket into a different direction. I'm not saying that I am in any way completely over this. This is something that will never go away. Healing is an ebb and flow. That just last year, my older brother and sister-in-law announced that they were pregnant, and they didn't give me a heads up. So when they announced it to everyone, my husband and I were there, and it sent me into a PTSD episode. I held it together while we were there, but as soon as we got in the car to head home, I lost it. And before, I would have held that back. I would have held it in because I didn't want to upset my husband or anyone, but I let it out, and I screamed and cried until I was hiccuping in the cry, because, you know, when you're like trying to get your breath, all the way home for 45 minutes, and it felt great. So I give myself time to feel it and feel all the feels. So when it works through, I can actually move on and get past that and accept that this is where I am, and I'm just going to have to keep going forward. Now, physically, all of the years of medication broke down the tissues in my gut. Okay. So that created a leaky gut situation. And for those of you who don't know what it is, my small intestines literally opened up like this, and my food that I'm eating was going through my small intestines into my bloodstream. And I created antibodies to all the food that I was eating. So I became allergic to food. I got down to 5 foods that I could eat. And I was so malnourished that I had lost 15 pounds. I had eczema and things coming up all over my face. You can kind of see where I'm still healing from it. But luckily, I found some help, and my body is healing after I went to several doctors. It was just like the infertility experience all over again. No one believed me. I needed to force, people to listen to me, and I advocated for myself. And so now I'm dealing with histamine intolerance, which is when my immune system is overreactive and reacts to everything, environmental and things that I ingest. So that's going to take a lot of time to heal too. And it's all brought on from the years of infertility meds, but it wasn't just the meds. That's the thing. It was the stress that I kept pushing down. I've learned so much about how stress can break down the body. It is actually worse to deal with stress and not go through a complete stress cycle, and that's a scientific situation there, that stress cycle, than it is just to smoke a pack of cigarettes a day. Because the pack of cigarettes are going to kill you a lot more slowly than the stress will. So that's where I am. That's what I'm dealing with. And our last procedure was in 2017. So here I am still trying to heal from it physically and move on mentally.
I don't know who I am still. I'm still working through that. Am I better than I was a year ago? Yes. Am I better than I was two? Yes. But I feel like I'm just in this limbo place and I don't know how to get out of it. So I don't know where you are with that, but you know, I used to want to be back to the person I was, but I know that's never going to happen. And
Right.
obviously I want to learn and grow from what I went through. But again, I still don't feel, and I don't think anyone ever is 100% evolved or themselves. Every life situation changes you. But I feel like I'm stuck right now. That's where I am.
And I think that's very common, if you don't mind me commenting on.
No, yes, absolutely.
I think that's very common because I've been there, and at times I'm still there. And I think this is part of the phase. It's a phase of finding yourself again, of finding your place in the world. Because what you're really wanting, and correct me if I'm wrong, is trying to figure out where you fit.
Mm-hmm.
And what I have found out is I've stopped trying to fit with what society has, boxed out, because we don't fit there. And you know what the thing is, Sarah, is that it's okay. And that's what I have learned to say. It is okay. And you know what? It's almost better, because why do we have to put ourselves in a little bitty box in order to understand who we are, right? One thing that you and I get to do is that we get to focus on ourselves every day. I'm not saying we sit here and we just introspect and just look at ourselves all day, every day. That's not it at all. But what we get to do is focus on where we are, where we want to go, and how are we going to get there. And there is nothing wrong with that. And I can tell you, Sarah, I would say that you're probably where I was about 4 years ago. You know what? Maybe. But see, I have some PTSD. I don't know if you've experienced those things, but I get thrown back sometimes and I have to take some time to recover again. But it seems like every time I get thrown back and I take the time to recover, when I recover, I recover, but I'm recovered further than I was before I was thrown back. Does that make sense? It's a little wordy.
Yeah, no, totally. Yep.
Yeah, so you're on the right track. And I know it doesn't feel that way, but you are. You just keep looking in. Stop looking out for, and I mean looking outward, for things that are going to fill that void, because there is nothing that's going to fill that void. You're always going to have that void. But that is just that little reminder inside of you to go, yeah, you wanted that. You really wanted that. But you have qualities that you don't even realize right now, because you're still so sad, and that is okay. You take as much time as you need, okay? But you have qualities that you have to offer, and there is a purpose for you in those qualities. The skills and talents that you have, I don't know you. I literally just heard your name when we first started this. So I'm just saying that I know that no one is brought through this and then said, okay, here you go, you're done. No, there is a purpose for you and the skills and the talents that you have, and it's time for you to delve into them and figure out how it is that you can give back, because you have had experiences, just like you mentioned, that so many few have, that not many understand. And you can use that to help other people, and that in turn will help you heal. That's what I know, because that's what I've learned.
I appreciate that. Thank you. And that's kind of why I today wanted to do that. I'm like, this is like one step. This is way out of my comfort zone. I'm a very private person. So this is one step in kind of trying to get there. I appreciate that advice very much. Because I don't.
Go ahead.
Go ahead. Well, I was going to say, I don't get advice. Like, it's what I read or the blogs I see or whatever. I don't have anybody helping me through this. Like, it is literally myself and my husband trying to figure it out.
I have chill bumps all over because, I'm here. I've been through it. I'm here to help you. I've been through almost every single thing that you can experience in infertility. I can help you. My husband is open to talking to your husband because it is different for him. And he has not had a chance to actually go through all of his healing like he needs to. And he's still having to, sometimes I notice that our relationship's a little strained. Well, a lot strained, even now. And I just realized, he hasn't had the chance to heal like I have because he's still, we have a business that we run, we're building a house, all the things. He just hasn't had a moment for life to calm down. And I have to say, I don't know what it happened for you, but during COVID, when it was so horrible for everyone else, when everything shut down and it was just me and my husband, it was so wonderful because then we reconnected again. And I realized, yes, the love is still there. Is it hard sometimes to remember or to feel that that's where we started? That's what brought us to all of this? Yeah, but it's still there and it's so worth it. The thing that's going to heal you the most, Sarah, is if you can give back, because then that makes you feel like that what you went through wasn't in vain.
Thank you. You've already helped me within the last 15 minutes. So thank you. I appreciate that very much.
Wonderful.
Hi, I'm Lori Metz, and I am I'm a therapist. I specialize in fertility. And I think that these were two of the bravest women who just came forward to share their story. And I was so taken with both of them and both their stories and both their journeys, and to make the decision that they had to make all along the line. Because when you go through fertility treatment, it is a biopsychosocial experience. And what we've just heard was really the biopsychosocial impact it can have. And Dayna is really still going through this years later. So I'm sad to hear that Sarah couldn't have the support that she needed. We see a lot of what you're experiencing, or a lot of what you're hearing, is not uncommon. It's very common. You're suffering from an invisible disease. And infertility is a disease. It's a diagnostic disease. And what we want to try and do is have you understand that when things are, and have society understand that when things are invisible, when we don't see them, people can't grab hold of them and understand that there is a condition there, and it's painful, emotionally and physically, and it hurts. And so the first step in that is really us understanding that. And it's a roller coaster, when you go through fertility treatment, you feel like you're doing the same thing over and over again, but really you're not. What you're trying to do is put the pieces of the puzzle together. And you're trying to see, okay, maybe if we do it this way, or maybe if we do it that way, it'll work. And unfortunately, sometimes it just doesn't work. I am so taken with both of you to have the strength to come on here today, and Dayna to write a book, which is wonderful, and it's very empowering, and it really shows that you could take control of the situation and give back to others. And Sarah, just to come on for the first time and start to talk about it, it's also really empowering, and it lets you see that you're ready for a next step. So whenever we go through grief and a mourning process, I agree with what Dayna said 100%. You have to allow yourself to go through the grief, because otherwise what happens is it gets bottled up, and then we don't know what we're going to do with it. I mean, I was heartbroken to hear that it brought you to the point of almost suicide, and to have no other outlet. And there are other outlets. It's just finding them. And because we're all unique, we all have different outlets. So I don't know if you want to ask me some questions, or if you want me to give you a little bit more information, but I do love that, there was an opportunity to come together and for you to talk. One of the things I love to do is run support groups, and people to stay in touch after the support group is like the greatest gift to me, because that's what you want. You don't want to feel lonely or isolated, and people in these situations are not. They just don't know where to go to connect.
So one of the questions that I have a couple actually. So Sarah is in a phase, because I've been in that phase, and I know where it's probably gonna lead, because it seems to be, step by step in healing process. And I feel like I'm in another phase. But what is to come next? What should I expect next? So I'm still trying to find myself, like Sarah said. What should I expect?
I don't think there's any what should come next. I think what comes next is what works for you. And we have to create individual plans for each person because we're all different. So, I know that you're thinking it goes in phases, and grief does to some extent go in phases, but sometimes you go from 1 to 3 to 2.
There's
It's
no.
right. We go in all different phases. And what happened is you lost a dream.
Mm-hmm.
You lost something that you always wanted to have and you dreamed of and you visualized it. And, you went through everything physically and financially and emotionally and with your partners to do. And so now one of you had said that, all of a sudden it stopped. And the roller coaster stops and you don't know what to do with yourself because your life is so caught up in all of these appointments and getting up in the morning and going for the blood draws. So it is redefining yourself. And you may want to look back, and both of you mentioned, you wanted to try and think about being the person that you were, but in so many ways, you've grown so much and you've taken on so much and learned so much that you can almost be like a more improved or better version of yourself. And that might be hard to see right now.
Oh, I 100% believe that. I actually looked back with writing my book. That really helped to see the person that I was. And that poor girl and the things that I've learned, yeah. Even when I started, I was in my 30s when this all started. I was still so young. And now where I am, I'm able to see the things that I learned, experiences that I've had, and things that I now understand. I never want to go back to being that person again.
I love that you wrote the book. I think that is just sensational because it's also so cathartic to put it on paper and to be able to look at it like a third person. And very often when we do that, the goal is to achieve what you achieved. So you've done a fabulous job with it.
Thank you. So the other question I had was about my husband.
Yes, please include your husband, ladies. Include your partners because they are going through this too.
What can I do to help my husband understand he has to face this and allow himself to go through this instead of just holding it back? I feel like there's just some, men just don't deal with it like they need to.
I think they deal with it differently.
Mm-hmm.
I think that each man deals with it. I've met with many men and many couples and actually did a podcast on the male perspective of infertility.
I need that. Where is that?
That's on my website. So it's on my website. My website's my name, LoriMetz.net. But I did it a long time ago. The male perspective is very interesting because what's happening is they're going down the same path as you are, but it's a different journey because it's your body. And so very often the men feel like they should take the back seat because they don't have to go through all of the medical treatment. They'll go and they'll do a little bit of treatment and that will be it if it's not the male factor infertility. And even then, they don't go through the same regime that most women go through. That's not the testing that they put men through, at least not at this point in time.
Right.
So men process things a little bit differently. And everybody's unique. I used that word before because it's really true. So I don't really know your husband, know culturally a little bit about the Indian culture, and it's a beautiful culture. It really is. And I had the opportunity to travel there and I loved it. And I think that if he's a private man, your husband, I don't know if he is or he isn't, then he may want to process it without talking about it to you. He may just want to think about it. One of the most important things, I think, is redefining your life and what you see for your future. I think it might always tug at your heart a little bit when you see children going on an Easter egg hunt. But I think if you're able to redefine what it is that you enjoy and what you want to do, then that tugging might become a little bit less. And that's an important piece to look at. And when you talk to your husband, I like to say partners a lot, but when you talk to your husband, I think it's important to start to talk about redefining without maybe necessarily using that word, but what do you think we should do next? Are there any dreams that you had besides having a child, even though your whole focus was having a child? We have all these dimensions to our life. And so if I'm not Freudian at all, which you probably can tell already, but Freud said we have 3 spheres in life. We have our professional life, we have our social life, and then we have a romantic life. And what we want to do is we want to look at these pieces in our life and see how they could be enriched. Now, I tend to break it down into many more than 3 spheres. But the truth is we don't want unbalance in all of them. We want to have some balance. So if we could look at life and say, I've always wanted to maybe build a business or start some volunteer work or spend more time and devote it to helping others, or maybe, whatever it was, develop a talent. It's not to replace the loss. It's to enrich your life in other ways in which you would like to be able to take that opportunity to enrich it.
Mm-hmm.
I really, really have such dislike for the phrase womanhood equals motherhood. It's absurd because it doesn't. And I think that women don't have children for so many reasons. Some have gone through this long journey, like the 2 of you, with fertility. Some have just become too old. They decide when they're a little too old to have children. Some only wanted to have children with a partner, and they never met that partner. There's a lot of women who don't have children, and they live rich, full lives.
Yes.
And that's something that sometimes is hard to see. Sarah, especially in the beginning, it's hard to see.
So
Yeah.
I see other women doing it, but I don't see it for me right now.
You have to let yourself grieve through the process a little bit.
Yeah.
Don't try and push it away. That's what Dayna was saying. When you push something away, it's like sweeping it under the rug. We want to try and, sometimes it's really painful to think about it or talk about it. And I'm not saying to do it. I'm so sorry that you had such a hard time with finding a therapist. That really broke my heart that you said that, because there should be people there that you could talk to, because grief is grief no matter how you look at it.
Mm-hmm.
And it's just, it is. And we have to be able to talk about that and deal with it. So allow yourself to do that. Allow yourself to journal if you like to write. It might be a really cathartic thing for you to do. And, you may want to do that not right before you go to bed. Maybe before you go to bed, you might want to think of 1 or 2 things that made you smile. People talk about gratitude a lot. I like to talk about smiles, because I think sometimes when you're so sad, it's so hard to think about what to be grateful for. But we can always think about something that made us smile. Even a flower, something simple to be grateful for. So we could start with that.
You mentioned the flower. That's what I've done. I buy myself flowers. It makes me feel really good just to see them in the house. The other thing it is that really helped kind of pull myself out slowly was I started a joy jar, and I have a little pad of Post-its and a pen sitting next to it, and I will write down joys throughout the day and put it in the jar. And it's anything, Sarah. And it reminds me of all the things that bring me joy, and then I try and focus on more or create that again in the following year. So I keep building on the joy.
Yeah. I like that.
Yeah, I think that's good. I think that's wonderful that you do that. You're like inspirational, really. Mm-hmm. Sarah, if that's too much for you, then before you go to sleep at night, try and think of 1 or 2 things that made you smile. Okay, and make maybe what Dayna did a goal, if that's something that you like to do. Don't try and give yourself a goal that is not obtainable at this point in time. Give yourself achievable goals, things that maybe seem like they bring you a little joy or a little pleasure to do. Because if we say we're going to do something, then we do it, then we don't, because we're just not up to it. We disappoint ourselves.
Yeah.
And there's no point in disappointing yourself. You have enough going on. So the other thing that I like to recommend for people to do while they're going through this, when you wake up in the morning, and you get out of bed, you're sitting on the side of the bed, what you could do is you could breathe in for 3 seconds, hold it for 3 seconds, and then breathe out for 4 seconds. The out breath slows down your neurological system, and it relieves the stress. Okay? So in the morning, you can do that. And if you want, you could think about some things that you have to do for the day. In the middle of the day, you could take a break in the middle of the day and do it. And I'd like you to have an affirmation that you like. And so I like, this time is for me. So in the middle of the day, when you take your breath, which is 10 seconds, we all have 10 seconds, it's this time is for me. And then at night, when you take your breath, you can take the breath and think about a couple of things that made you smile. The breathing does a couple of things. We have to breathe. We have to allow our bodies to calm. And it gives us reason to pause. And when we have reason to pause, we gain perspective. And these are all things that we want in life, and they help us through the process. So if any of this sounds doable, then please do it. And if it sounds like it's too much, just, tell me and we'll think of other things that could work.
I definitely agree with the breathing. I actually started yoga. I'm on day 85. So I wake up and do yoga first thing in the morning to my breathing. And I've noticed that I've implemented that throughout the day.
Fabulous. Yeah. Well, Dayna mentioned mindfulness when she was talking.
But the mindfulness isn't just one thing, though. It's all the things that you were talking about. So, the breathing, taking time for yourself. I'm learning to incorporate little naps, like a 20-minute nap in the middle of the day. So I am not pushing through the evening because I'm a to-do list kind of person. So I take a little nap, and it's not even a fall asleep. It is just let me sit here and close my eyes for a few minutes. And find myself, I might doze off, I might not, but then I get up and I feel refreshed and I go through the day and I don't feel like that I'm being bogged down by anything. And I feel a little more in control because I set a goal, I completed it, and it kind of gives me my power back. Little things like that.
That's so important. Now, what I like about mindfulness also, Dayna, is that mindfulness doesn't tell you to clear your mind, right? Mindfulness says the things are there, they're floating around, but let's just put them in a box for a little while. Let's have them be clouds, and let's say, okay, they're there. These things are not going away, right? They're there. The grief is there, the happiness is there, the dirty dishes are there, whatever, it's all there. But I'm just going to take this time right now to breathe and to be.
Right.
And if something's bothering me, I'm going to look at it like an object. I'm going to take it out of myself. And I'm going to look at it like a three-dimensional object and see exactly what that is. And I'm going to examine it and say, well, should that bother me? And what does it look like really? What does that emotion mean? And I'm going to break it down so it could be helpful.
That's helpful. I have, I imagine a little devil and a little angel, my ego and my soul on my shoulders. And I've learned to control my thoughts. I'll start to have a thought that comes in from the little devil side, and I'll immediately just stop it. And sometimes my mom didn't know what I was doing when I figured out I was going to do this. I've been doing this for years now, so everybody knows what it means when I go. I'm literally taking the thought and just kind of throwing. I'm like, no, that is not useful for me. I'm throwing it. Or sometimes I used to tell myself I would write things down, the thought that I was having, because it would come over and over and over again. And I would throw it into a ball and put it in the trash can, because it made me feel like I'm taking this thought, I'm controlling it. It's not controlling me, and I'm getting rid of it. It's not serving me in any way. And little things like that are helping me. Well, that's what I used to do, but I don't have to do that so much anymore. But it helped me find my strength and getting my power back, because I gave so much of my power away to make sure that everyone else was safe while I was giving myself up for the whole good of it all. You know what I mean? And that was completely wrong.
Well, it wasn't wrong, and I wouldn't fault myself. I think really what happens is when you go through fertility treatment, when you have a dream and you're trying to have that dream come to fruition, and one that every woman thinks should come to fruition, which is having a child, right? We all think that that's our right and that there's no reason for us not to. Well, when that happens, I think what we want to look at is not to blame ourselves, but to think to ourselves, well, we're following the doctor's advice. We're doing what they're saying. And so what we do is we give over control.
Oh, well,
over what's going on, but we're not just giving it away, just willy-nilly. What we're doing is we're trusting the people who we think are the experts.
mhm.
And they're trying their best to put that piece of the puzzle together, but it doesn't mean they can always do it. So control is an important piece of this. And taking it back and knowing how to care for yourself is very important.